What we're looking at here today is the lock and load Hornady auto charge powder dispenser. What this tool is intended for is to speed up your delivery of reloading time, especially for your single stage loaders out there. In this box comes the instruction manual for the lock and load auto charge, which you will want to refer back to as you set up and run this tool. Probably one of the first important things we're going to need to make sure we have is a good level bench, which will be done with a good level. Placing it on your table next to your auto charge to confirm your bubble is centered. This ensures that our powder dispenser tube is level and not going to shoot powder out quicker than we are intending. As you see the auto charge here now, I have it set up, turned on, everything is zeroed out. I have the pan on, but in order to do a calibration, we are going to want to remove the powder pan. You'll see we have a negative weight due to the pan being off. We can go ahead and zero it at this time. We now have everything zeroed. We're going to hit the calibration button. It's going to change it over to grams, which is going to show you a 0.00. From that point, we're going to hit calibrate one more time. It's going to show us a section of dashes, which at that point is showing us now to apply the 10-gram weight, which is also included. We apply the 10-gram weight, we push the calibration button, a segment of dashes appear again. Now it is asking us for the 50-gram weight. We are going to remove the 10-gram weight and we're going to apply the 50-gram weight to the scale. We are then going to hit calibrate again. From this point, the dashes. Now very briefly, it's going to say pass on that screen. And then it is going to go to a number of 771.7 or 6. Right in that range. And what this unit has done at this point is went back to grains. So now the 50-gram weight is being weighed in grains, so is not showing what that 50 grams is. If we want to see what the 50-gram weight is weighing correctly, we can actually change this over in the units button back to grams by simply hitting the units button one time. It will then take us over to the gram weights, which now shows 50 grams. From this point, we are going to want to take it back to the grain weight, since this is what we are going to be measuring powder in, and remove our 50-gram weight. The unit is now ready to be entered a target weight or powder of choice. So at this point, I would choose the powder I'm wanting to use, whether it be a heavy extruded stick powder or a somewhat dense ball powder. I'm going to now apply some of the Rotumbo by Hodgson Powder Company into this hopper so we can set up a charge to be dispensed. I may also mention, prior to pouring this powder in, please make sure that your drain tube is turned in the upright position. Otherwise, you are going to spill powder onto the bench. Now from this point, we would generally in a Rotumbo load be loading something in the 60 grain plus weight of charge for a large Magnum cartridge. We're going to go ahead and apply the powder pan back on. It's now showing us a positive weight due to the pan being on there, which does not show a negative. It will only show a negative during something being removed. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and zero the scale. Now everything is zeroed out. We have this unit set on auto, and this is the way it's going to come out of the package. It's going to be set on auto. And it's also going to be set on normal for the speed in which the tube is going to be dispensing the powder. So we're going to go ahead and enter a charge in here, and knowing that this is a dense powder, we may expect to see that this is going to throw an overcharge. I don't know yet what this one is going to do for sure, but we're going to go ahead and enter in a 60 grain charge. We're going to press the 6, the 0, and then another 0 so that we can get past the decimal point on the scale. We now have a 60 grain charge. To enter that into our target weight, we must first press either the enter button, which now moves our 60 grain charge into our target weight, or we could just use the dispense button and hit that. But for this video, I would suggest using the enter button. From this point, if we hit the dispense button, set on auto, this unit is going to go ahead and kick out the charge. It will start out on a slow motion because it doesn't know how far it's going until that powder starts running out. Once the powder starts hitting the pan, it's going to speed up the speed in which it starts running the powder out. Now what we have is an overcharge on this powder. Due to the density of this powder, we are probably going to have to run this into a slow mode on the speed to start with. That will be my first setting that I'm going to change. So from this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter button, which is now going to show me the exact weight of that overcharge in that pan, which is 60.5 grains. If that is not acceptable, go ahead and take your powder, dump it back into the pan, and prior to setting this pan back on, if you set this on and it goes back to 0, it is going to begin dispensing again. So prior to setting it on there, we're first going to change our speed over to slow. So by pressing the speed button once, it takes it to fast. Pressing it a second time goes to the slow mode. I'm now going to put the pan back on, and it should go to 0, and as soon as it zeroes, it will automatically begin dispensing powder again. This time it actually stopped well before our target weight of 60 grains and began trickling its way up to where we needed to be. As you heard the beep, that indicated that it has reached the target weight, and we can now take that charge and either verify it on another Hornady balance beam or digital scale for confirmation that this charge is a correct charge and the scale is correct. But absolutely is not necessary all the time. The scale is set up to have a 1/10 variation of charge, so this should be dead on. I'm going to go ahead and dump this powder back in there, and I'm going to go ahead and place the tray back on. We're going to run one more charge and see where it comes to. Make sure that we're getting far enough away from our target weight before this thing actually stops and begins to trickle. There are some adjustments I can make to slow this down or get it farther away from my target weight so that I don't ever run into an overcharge. This one is going to go ahead and overcharge. So in order to clear that over, which is locked on the screen at this time, we're going to go ahead and hit the enter button. It now shows me that I have a 60.5 grain charge in there, which is well over what we were intending. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this powder back into the hopper, not placing the pan back onto the scale, because if I place it back on there, I'm now going to begin dispensing another charge. From this point, I'm going to begin by slowing down my trickle speed. By doing this, we're going to press and hold the calibration button. By holding this, it's going to take me to a word called, it says set on the screen. From this point, we're going to use the speeds and units button to increase or decrease the speed in which our trickle is trickling. I know I want to go slower, which I'm going to use the units button to decrease this. It's now at 0.3 in the speed in which the trickle will run. I'm going to back it down, clear down to 0.2 on the trickle speed to see if that alleviates my overcharge. From this point, after you get that set to where you want it, you're going to press and hold the back cancel button which is then going to store that number in the system so that it knows where it's going to set the speed in which it trickles. I'm then going to set the pan back on. The unit should zero. We now have no target weight because we used the back cancel button during this process. So we're going to have to enter the target weight back into the system. So we're going to hit 600. Then I'm going to hit the enter button to lock that into my target and use the dispense button to start the unit going. You can see that it actually stopped before my target weight early enough to allow this to trickle up. And we had the trickle set slow enough in which it actually trickled up to our target weight. Now, if I was wanting to stop this farther away from my target weight so that I could actually slow it down earlier, or maybe even stop it before it reaches my target weight because I wanted something lighter to where I wanted to trickle it up too, I can then actually use my back cancel button again, clear my target weight, dump the powder back into the hopper. Now since I don't have a target weight, I can go ahead and set the pan back on here because it will not start dispensing. Now everything is zeroed out and we have to have a zero screen to make this adjustment. From this point, we're going to press and hold the mode button for 6 seconds. We're then going to get a number that comes up on the screen, which is going to start at 0.2. It's going to begin to walk up. We are now at 1.0. I'm going to let go of the button. Now what this is going to do is going to stop us well before our charge weight is reached and allow us to trickle up farther to our target weight. Now if you ever hit the back cancel button or shut the unit off, that number that we just adjusted with the mode button is going to return to the 0.2, which you will have to reset to where you need it for whatever density of powder that you may be running. From this point, we're going to go ahead and enter in our 60 grain charge weight again. We now have it on our weight side. We're going to hit the enter button. As we hit the enter button, it takes it to the target weight. Now from this point, even though it says 60 here and 60 there, I can go ahead and hit the dispense button. As soon as I do that, it will zero this unit out and take it back to a 0, and once it zeroes, it will begin dispensing. You'll see that it's going to stop well before my 60 grains at this point. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to take a little more time to get up to our target weight. So this is a fine-tuned setting, depending on what length of time you're wanting to wait for your charge to begin getting to where it needs to be. It is now trickling, trying to hit exactly the 60 grains. When it hits it, it's going to beep, which it beeped. Now what it's telling us is that we have exactly our charge weight that we're looking for, and from this point we can go ahead and load it into our cartridge case. Now when I place this pan back onto the scale, it's then going to begin dispensing another charge once this zeroes out. And you'll see again that this should stop well before our charge weight and begin to trickle. And again, I will repeat that you can set this using your mode button to fine-tune it so that you're not waiting too long for this charge to get to where you're wanting it. And this is also going to vary on the density of that powder that you're using. Because this charge, as this powder is very dense, if 2 or 3 sticks fall out of this tube and fall out during the trickle, we may actually get an overcharge once in a while. So what we're going to have to do is we're actually going to have to hit the enter button to see exactly what our charge is. It's allowed 1/10, but it actually went to 2/10 over our charge weight. So this is not going to allow the scale to verify this as a correct charge. You may have to either adjust this or go ahead and empty this pan back into the hopper and go ahead and run a second charge. But this is also going to be due to the density of these sticks of powder. If you get 2 or 3 sticks that fall out, it's going to overcharge. I mean, it just is the dense weight of that actual product. As we place it back on, it's going to go ahead and take off again and create another charge for us. Even though you saw that number hit 60.1, that is a correct charge due to its allowance of the 1/10. And it will then go back to the 60 grains, showing you and beeping and indicating as a correct charge. We can then go ahead and dump this powder back in. Now I'm going to show you one other thing. Before I place this pan back on, I'm going to use the back cancel button and clear our target weight. Now, as I have a clear target weight, I can place the powder pan back on without having any dispensing. I believe this unit is set on a pulse mode at this time. I'm going to use the trickle button to actually adjust this to a normal. Oh, it's actually trying to trickle because I actually have a weight of negative on there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the unit with the off button. I'm going to turn it back on. I'm actually going to use the dispense button to set this to a normal mode rather than pulse. Okay, you saw the P come up on the screen. That indicates pulse. If we press it again, we should get an N coming up on the screen, which is for normal mode. If you're wanting to actually quiet the machine and not have any beeping or beeping to the overcharge, you can actually use the 0 button. By pressing and holding it, you can actually turn your indicator off as it goes to an off. We normally will want to run this in an on mode so we can actually hear this when it hits our target weight or overcharges. So I'm going to press and hold the 0 button again until I get the on, which will indicate the beep to be on. So this is most of the processes of which you would be running the auto charge in the dispensing mode. From this point, we're going to want to make sure that we clear the powder from the hopper as we leave our loading session. We're never wanting to store or leave powder in this hopper due to the humidity being able to run up the tube and causing, issues with our powder. There could be any kind of contaminant that you may have in your room that would cause an issue with that powder. So we never want to leave or store powder in that hopper. From this point, we have our discharge on the side of the unit. If your powder is below the hopper level, from this point, you can actually remove your hopper from the system, making sure that all the powder gets back into the top of the unit. You then ensure that you have the correct powder can that you have in that at this time. You're then going to remove your lid. You can either do this with a funnel, or if you have a wide mouth can, it's fairly simple to bring the unit to the side of your bench, placing the container underneath the drain tube and rotating it to the bottom of the position, which will then allow the powder to begin draining out of the system. At this time, you're going to want to make sure that your powder is out of the pan, removing the pan so that it's not sitting on your tray. You're at this time going to want to slightly tip the unit back so that no powder can actually come out of the tube, and lightly shake it so that the powder runs back to the hopper of the unit. Once that powder is back to the hopper, you can go ahead and place it down. And then take your brush, which is included in with the lock and load Hornady auto charge. Go ahead and brush any remaining powder that is left in the hopper down to the drop, making sure that it is all the way down through the dropping position. From this point, we want to go ahead and lock this back closed so that the next time we get ready to add powder to it, we're not going to spill powder on our bench. Thank you.